Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into this article by Daryl Amy. Business owners, are you playing an instrument while trying to conduct your business? And it's a really cool analogy that he starts off with.
Yeah, he actually asks us to picture like a French horn player who's trying to conduct the orchestra while they're still playing their instrument.
It's kind of funny to picture. But Amy's point is that a lot of business owners are doing something similar. Like they're so caught up in the everyday tasks that they're not really leading.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And he doesn't just give you the analogy, he really gets into why this happens. Like why do so many business owners find themselves in that position?
So why do owners end up stuck playing the instrument? Well, the article talks about this reluctance to spend money on things like hiring and delegating and setting up systems. It's
Hmm.
almost like this fear of letting go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's understandable, right? If you've built a business from the ground up, the idea of handing off important tasks can feel really risky.
Oh, absolutely. But Amy and actually a CEO named Kevin Hambrace, who he quotes in the article, they both say that this clinging to control can actually backfire and end up hurting the business in the long run.
I see what you mean. Like, imagine you're a potential buyer and you're looking at two businesses. One runs smoothly with good systems in place and a capable team. The other one is totally dependent on the owner. Which one seems like the safer bet?
Yeah, obviously the first one, Amy points out that a business that relies too heavily on the owner is seen as risky to potential buyers, and that risk directly translates into a lower valuation when it's time to sell. And actually, he goes on to list 6 specific consequences of this instrument playing mentality.
And it's not just about the sale price, right? Like these consequences actually affect the day-to-day running of the business too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. If you're constantly putting out fires and dealing with every little detail, when do you have time to think strategically about growing your business? Like expanding into new markets or developing new products.
Yeah, that makes sense. The article also talks about the negative impact this can have on employees.
Oh, yeah.
Like Amy describes this environment of micromanagement, changing priorities, and just general chaos. I mean, no wonder he compares it to a French horn player trying to conduct an orchestra.
It's true. And that kind of chaos leads to high employee turnover.
Yep.
Talented people want to contribute. They want to grow. They don't want to be micromanaged. In the article, Hambreys really emphasizes the importance of letting employees own the results of their work without that sense of ownership. You just end up with a team that's going through the motions.
Yeah, it's like they're just playing scales while the conductor's desperately trying to get them to perform a symphony.
Yeah. And all of this, the lower valuation, the slow growth, the issues with employees, it all contributes to increased stress and burnout for both the owner and the employees.
So it's not just about individual well-being, it's about the health of the whole organization.
Exactly. And Amy also argues that this whole instrument playing mentality makes the business less resilient. What happens if the owner gets sick or wants to retire or there's some sudden change in the market that requires you to adapt quickly? If everything hinges on one person, the whole business is vulnerable.
Okay, so we've seen how staying stuck playing the instrument can really damage a business. But how does an owner make that shift to conductor? I mean, is it as easy as just deciding to delegate more?
Well, it's more about a fundamental shift in mindset, and that takes deliberate effort. Amy talks about giving up to go up. What do you think about that phrase?
Well, I think it speaks to the idea that you have to be willing to let go of some control over specific tasks in order to make room for that higher level thinking in those leadership activities, you
Yeah.
know? It's about recognizing that you can't do everything yourself and that letting go can actually be a sign of strength, not weakness.
That's a great point. But what about those owners who really believe they are the best person for certain tasks?
Well, that's where developing leadership skills comes in, right? Amy talks about moving beyond just giving orders. It's about inspiring your team, guiding them, helping them develop their skills so they can take ownership.
Exactly. And the article also highlights the importance of building systems to replace that dependence on the owner. Think of it like writing the sheet music so the orchestra can play, even if the conductor's out sick one day.
So it's about documenting procedures, training employees, and setting clear expectations so that the business can run smoothly, even without the owner having to constantly step in.
Exactly. But isn't there a danger in becoming too detached from the day-to-day operations? How do you find that balance between leading and staying connected to the core of your business?
That's a great question, and one that I think a lot of owners struggle with. You know, it's not about being completely hands off, it's about strategically choosing where your time and energy are best spent.
You're right. And I think that leads us perfectly into the next section, where Amy gets into the specifics of how to actually make this shift. How do you identify the right things to delegate? How do you train your team effectively? And how do you build systems that truly empower your employees? Welcome back. So we've been talking about this idea of the business owner as a conductor rather than an instrument player. And what's really cool is that this analogy actually applies to more than just business.
Oh, totally. Like, even thinking about my own to-do list, I can see there are certain tasks that I just cling to that keep me from focusing on the bigger picture. Maybe those are my French horn moments.
Exactly. And he gives some really practical advice on how to actually start making that shift. And he talks about identifying your point of maximum leverage, those areas where your unique skills and knowledge really make the biggest difference.
Okay, so instead of getting bogged down in things that somebody else could handle, you're focusing on activities that really drive the business forward.
Right. And to do that, you have to get comfortable delegating. Amy emphasizes that it's not enough to just throw work at someone. You have to match tasks with people's strengths and provide clear expectations and support.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the receiving end of that kind of delegation where it's just like, here, do this. Not fun at all.
Right. Amy actually gives a great example of what good delegation looks like. He talks about how he delegated the task of creating a company newsletter to an employee.
Oh, okay.
But he didn't just say, hey, make a newsletter. He gave clear guidelines. He provided resources. He even gave feedback on early drafts.
Oh, that's good.
And the end result was a really great newsletter that the employee was proud of.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
The employee got valuable experience, and Amy was free to focus on other things.
Exactly. But what about those tasks that feel too important to hand off?
Yeah, like the things that you feel like only you can do.
That's where Amy's advice on building systems comes in. He says that even really complex tasks can be broken down into smaller steps and then documented into procedures that anyone can follow.
So it's like creating a recipe for success. Anyone can follow the steps and achieve the desired result, even if they've never done it before.
Exactly. That's how you start to build a business that can actually run without you having to constantly step in.
Yeah.
Amy uses this phrase, systemize, don't customize.
I like that. It really emphasizes that shift from relying on individual heroics to actually creating a framework that can be repeated and scaled.
Right. But let's be real here. Building systems sounds like it could take a lot of time and feel kind of overwhelming, especially for a busy owner.
Oh, for sure.
But Amy says that even small steps can make a big difference. He suggests starting with those recurring problems or bottlenecks that are constantly taking up your time and energy.
Okay, so for example, if you're always answering the same customer service questions over and over, that could be a good place to start building a system.
Exactly. You could create like a FAQ document or even automate some responses.
Yeah, make things easier for everyone.
And every system you create frees up more of your time and mental energy, which allows you to step further into that conductor role.
Right, it's like learning to trust the orchestra to play the notes while you focus on the overall tempo and dynamics of the performance.
Perfect analogy. And it's important to remember that this isn't just about making the owner's life easier. It's also about empowering employees to take ownership, develop their skills, and feel a greater sense of purpose in their work.
Which then leads to a happier, more engaged, and more productive team.
Exactly. And more valuable business, too. Amy brings this point up again, reminding us that investors and buyers, they're looking for businesses that can run smoothly, even without the founder at the helm.
So systems, strong leadership, empowered employees, those are the hallmarks of a truly valuable and sustainable business.
They really are. But there's one more element that Amy emphasizes, and that's leadership development. It's not enough to just delegate tasks and build systems.
Yeah.
You actually have to cultivate the skills and the mindset of a true leader.
And that's more than just giving orders, right?
Right. He talks about moving from what's called a transactional leadership style, which is all about getting things done, to a more transformational style.
So instead of just telling people what to do, you're inspiring them, coaching them, and helping them reach their full potential.
Exactly. And that requires a whole different set of skills. Things like effective communication, active listening, and giving constructive feedback.
It's interesting. Amy actually draws a parallel between leadership and parenting. He says that the best leaders are kind of like the best parents. They focus on nurturing growth and empowering their team to make their own decisions.
It's about creating an environment where people feel valued and supported and inspired to do their best work. And that takes conscious effort and ongoing learning.
So we've talked about delegating, building systems, and developing leadership skills, but how do you know when you've actually made that shift from instrument to baton? What does it actually look like in practice? Okay, so we're back, and I think this is where it gets really interesting for anyone listening who's thinking, all right, this all sounds good in theory, but how do I know if I'm still stuck playing the instrument?
Well, Amy actually gives a few telltale signs. One question he asks is, Are you working in your business or on your business? If you're spending most of your time on those day-to-day tasks that just keep things running, you're probably still playing that French horn.
So it's about stepping back and looking at how you're spending your time. Are you the bottleneck for decisions? Do things come to a screeching halt if you're out of the office for a day? Those are pretty clear signs that you haven't really stepped into that conductor role.
Exactly. He also asked this other question that I thought was really interesting. If you were hit by a bus tomorrow, would your business be able to continue without you?
Okay, that's a little morbid, but I get the point. It makes you think about whether you've built something that can actually last or if it all depends on you.
Right. And the answer is no. If your business wouldn't survive without you, that's a clear sign that you need to start putting those systems in place and empowering your team.
It's like making sure the orchestra has all the sheet music and can play the symphony even if the conductor is suddenly gone.
Perfect analogy. And remember, this transition from instrument to baton, it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, I imagine there are going to be times when you have to step back into the orchestra and play your instrument, maybe to handle a crisis or to train someone on a new task.
Absolutely. And that's fine. The key is to be aware of how much time you're spending in each role and to always be moving towards that conductor mindset.
Amy also points out that this whole journey isn't just about building a more valuable business. It's about creating a more fulfilling life for yourself, too.
Yeah, he talks about how freeing yourself from the day-to-day grind can allow you to pursue other interests, spend more time with your family, or just have more mental space for creativity and strategic thinking.
It's about taking back your time and energy and focusing on what really matters to you.
Exactly. And that's why this message resonates with so many people, even outside the business world.
It's true. We all have areas in our lives where we might be playing the instrument when we could be conducting. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's in our relationships. Maybe it's in our hobbies.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to challenge you to ask yourself, where in your life are you holding yourself back by trying to control everything or getting lost in the details?
What would it look like to step back, empower others, and really focus on conducting the symphony of your own success?
And remember, the journey from instrument to baton, it's not always easy,
Yeah.
but the rewards are huge. It's about creating a business and a life that's not only successful, but also sustainable, fulfilling, and ultimately harmonious.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll leave you to think about these questions and to explore the resources that Amy mentions in his article. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.